Well, good evening, and it is a series of events right here in the country emanating from the stubborn COVID-19 pandemic, political drama, destruction from the rain, and so much more. Pledge Watch is here to make sure that you are updated on all this and much more. So tonight, we host South Mugirango Member of Parliament Sylvanus Osoru, one of the youthful figures in the 12th Parliament. And of course, we seek to know his developmental gains so far. So welcome to Pledge Watch. My name is Linda Alela. Here are the top stories tonight. All right, I think we'll be looking at that as we proceed with the broadcast. Welcome on board. Once again, my name is Linda Alela. My sign language interpreter, or our sign language interpreter tonight, is Ann Wairimo. Remember, it's important that you interact with us. Hashtag PledgeWatch is where you can drop those messages at Linda_Alela on Twitter, at TV47 on Twitter once again. And of course, you can also drop us a message on the SMS short code that is 22047. Let's get to hear what questions you have for Mission tonight, and most importantly, what your take is on the stories that we'll be carrying for you tonight. So let's go straight to the stories that we have. And Nairobi and Mombasa counties take up 90% of all COVID-19 cases in the country. Of the 374 cases nationally, Nairobi leads with 241 cases, followed by Mombasa County with 97 cases. 11 more cases were confirmed in the last 14 hours. Let's take a look.
Out of the 11 COVID-19 confirmed cases in the past 24 hours, 7 of the patients are from Nairobi County, while the other 4 patients are from Mombasa County. In Nairobi, the 7 cases were confirmed in the following areas: 4 cases in Kawangware, 1 case in Eastleigh, 1 case in Maji Estate, and 1 case in Kaloleni. The 4 cases in Mombasa County were confirmed in Kubokoni, formerly known as Old Town Mombasa. During the daily COVID-19 briefing, Chief Administrative Secretary for the Ministry of Health, Rashid Oman, said 10 more patients have recovered from coronavirus and were released from quarantine centers, bringing the number of patients recovered to 124. The number of COVID-19 cases worldwide now stands at over 3 million cases, with Kenya recording 374 cases, 12 deaths, and 124 recoveries. Tracy Mokami, TV47, Nairobi.
Yes, we continue to keep track of the cases that are coming in, and we update you accordingly when and of course where we get to get them. But that aside, we cross over to another story, and Kenyans who have been stranded in foreign countries like China, the UK and India can now get home, but at their own cost. According to Foreign Affairs Principal Secretary Ambassador Macharia Kamau, 500 Kenyans will be airlifted back to the country, with the exercise expected to kick off from Tuesday next week.
300 Kenyans stranded in China and 200 in India now have a chance to come back home, but only if they can afford to pay a one-way ticket from the 2 countries to Nairobi. Foreign Affairs Permanent Secretary Macharia Kamau says the evacuation exercise will start on Tuesday next week. Likewise, the Kenyan High Commissioner in London, Manoa Esipisu, has confirmed that a Kenya Airways flight will depart from London Heathrow Airport to Nairobi on 4th May 2020. Manoa is urging Kenyans stranded in UK to book their flight with tickets selling at 95,000 shillings for business class and 53,000 shillings for economy class per seat. A certificate showing a passenger is COVID-19 free from any accredited laboratory, and certification issued at least 7 days before travel is mandatory for boarding. Passengers must complete a coronavirus quarantine declaration form. On arrival, all passengers will be subjected to the 14 to 28 days mandatory quarantine period imposed by the government at their own cost. Lydia Gashomo, TV47.
Right, and still on issues that have been brought on board in regards to the COVID-19 case, long-distance truck drivers along Kandui-Malaba Highway have now threatened to go on strike if the process of temperature screen on a move to Malaba border is not hastened. The drivers say the temperature screening process is being done at a snail's pace, leading to long queues from Kaimeti Center to Malaba. Mike Kagwongo with more.
It's a long procession starting from Kimaeti, the border of Bungoma and Busia counties, all through to Malaba border. In 2 occasions, these drivers and other passengers must get temperatures taken at Kimaeti and Koteko points. On arrival to Malaba station, another temperature screening is conducted on long-distance truck drivers, this time using digital thermometers, before they are allowed to continue into Uganda, a process which takes approximately 7 minutes per driver, causing a long queue as others await for their turn.
Kulia wana take too long kupima mtu mmoja na magari ni mingi. So kama inawezekana waangalie sile makampuni sina move. Watumane madaktari pale, mtu unaenda kabla gari utoke kwa yadi pale mahali kwenye huo umepima umefanywa kila kitu, basi unatoka unaenda kimoja kimoja. So ukifika kwa mpaka ni kuthibitisha kwamba ulifanyiwa hivyo, then mtu unaenda.
Niliomba serikali itusaidie kuhusu jamu. Jamu imezidi sana. Wanza huko Kandui, sijui itafika hata mpaka Eldoret kwa vile navyoenda. Tumeteseka sana. Tukiuliza wenzetu wanatuambia shida ni ya kupima.
Kwanza kabla hujafika hapa, checkpoint hizi ziko barabarani na road block zimekuwa nyingi, muda mwingi tunapoteza barabarani. Sasa ukianza line hapa, leo ni siku ya 4, bado hatujavuka. Jambo la kwanza, kuna njaa barabarani. Watu wa kutuzia chakula pia wanapigwa, tunakufa na njaa. Sasa hatuelewi, tunasikia kule Uganda watu wanapimwa. At least ile kupimwa pale wangeweka vituo 2 vitatu.
However, a health officer at Malaba Station, Paul Kibi, says the process is underway to start COVID-19 testing among the drivers coming from Mombasa, as currently only their temperature is checked.
We are waiting for the ministry to put structures in place and maybe deployment of staff, and maybe to even identify the place where that kind of testing can be done. I believe what causes the queue to be long is because of the pace at which the clearance is being done in terms of screening on the Ugandan side, and even the issue of taking the specimens from the drivers.
This comes few days after the Ministry of Health reported that full COVID-19 screening shall begin soon at all borders points after 5 truck drivers from Kenya tested positive in Uganda.
Maintaining the social distance of 1 meter, the first person actually will start by being taken the temperature, and then from there easy details now will be recorded in our self-quarantine forms.
The drivers want the government to increase the number of health officers at the border point in order to hasten the screening process, lest they go on a strike.
Kuandamana ni lazima, tutaka tufanye maandamano ndio serikali ijue pia sisi tunateseka hapa. Kwa sababu serikali yetu hiyo ndio inazuia watu wasituzie chakula. Haitaki kuingilia pale kwa nini sisi tunakaa sana masaa mengi hapa barabarani. Kwa hiyo at least tukiandamana wanaweza ona kilio chetu na wasikie tunataka namna gani, at least waweke mikakati na ya kutufaa kidogo.
Reporting for TV 47 from Malaba, Busia County, I'm Mike Kagwongo.
All right, thank you, Mike, for that story. And now the Senate has raised queries over the coronavirus budget, more so on the expenditure of the COVID-19 pandemic kitty, after Vihiga Senator George Haneri presented a statement in the House calling upon the government to be accountable on every single coin in that kitty. This is after it emerged that counties haven't received any penny from the kitty, that from which the government intends to spend 40 billion shillings.
On COVID-19 situation in Kenya, laid on the table of the Senate on Tuesday, 28th, 2020.
In the afternoon session Tuesday, senators were on fire over coronavirus pandemic kitty. This is after a statement by Vihiga Senator George Haneri, which reflected on the realities on the ground, especially on the county governments, which he alleges have not received a penny from the national government to cushion their people against the ravages of coronavirus pandemic.
It would be very unfortunate for government officials to take advantage of the current situation to divert resources meant to fight COVID-19 into their pockets. Transparency and accountability is key to to protect public funds during this time.
Senators urged the Senate ADO Committee on Coronavirus, led by Senator Johnson Sakaja, to take the oversight role on the national government over the COVID-19 pandemic kitty.
Mr. Speaker, when I heard the Minister of Finance say that he has spent 40 billion on COVID-19 since it first hit the country, I was horrified. Because, Mr. Speaker, it amounted to almost $1 billion expenditure daily. And when you look around the country, I don't know about my colleagues' counties, nobody in my county has received a single face mask for free, sanitizer for free, or anything. In fact, Mr. Speaker, when you go to the counties, what is more visible today are police roadblocks.
Murkomen, which are true, just points out to the Jubilee government, which is incorrigible. It behaves like Nebuchadnezzar. You know, everything you could do, Corona was supposed to come so that at least we can change the way we do things.
40 billion shillings. We should be paying expenses for quarantine and treatment of the few that have been found with the virus. I mean, when is Kenya government going to be in a position to give for once something free, although it is not quite free?
This comes even as Sakaja-led committee raised concerns over the dismissal of the Kemri boss, Dr. Joel Lutomia. The senators expressed fear that the budget allocated to Kemri in the fight against COVID-19 might be the cause of Dr. Lutomia's dismissal.
Explain the impact of this action of sacking Dr. Joel Lutomia as the director in the Center for Virus Research in Kenya Medical Research Institute, on the general functioning of the center and the morale of other researchers at the center during COVID-19 pandemic.
The Senate ADO Committee on Coronavirus is set to meet National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Ukuru Yetani on Wednesday over the COVID-19 budget, amongst other issues. Elizabeth Mutiku, TV 47 Nairobi.
Well, and from that story by Liz to some sad story, over 45 families have been displaced by raging flood waters in Shibale and Lukayani, Kakamega County. The residents are worried that the situation could get worse as heavy rains continue pounding the region. And as Mulindi Kerry now reports, River Nzoia and River Kipsangui have burst their banks.
River Nzoia has burst its banks, and the impact of the flooding waters has brought more trouble for residents of Mumias in Kakamega County. Homesteads have been submerged and plantations washed away, a fate they share with the residents of Likuyani.
Imekuja kwa wingi mpaka tumeshangaa. Imeangusha manyumba zetu. Mkiona mazingira yetu pia si mzuri. Imetuletea magonjwa. Tuko na watoto wa chini ya miaka 5 wameadhiriwa, wanatembea katika hiyo maji, wanaweza kupelekwa hata wakati wowote na hiyo maji, maana hawajui maji ni nini. Mifugo yetu imeenda, nyumba zetu zimeboromoka, mimea zetu zimeenda.
Wamekumbwa na mkasa mkubwa wa maji, maji yameingia katika manyumba zao, na pia hata vitu vyao vyote vimesombwa, vimeelekea sehemu za Nzoia huko.
Saa 9 ya usiku tukapata imejaa mpaka kwa mlango. Tukajaribu kuvumilia labda itaenda, tukaona jioni imezidi. Sasa sisi tulifanya, tuliokuwa tu watoto kupeleka kwa majirani na sisi wenyewe. Vyombo tuliwacha tu, zingine zimeenda hasara. Mimea yetu ndio imeenda hasara. Tujapata chochote.
Even as the experts now caution that the onset of long rains could imperil livelihoods further, as an unprecedented downpour continues to be recorded in the River Nzoia catchment areas, residents here are worried of contracting waterborne diseases.
Hali macho zimeingia katika mashimo zetu za maji tunazozichota. Tunatumia hiyo maji kwa kukunywa, kwa kufua nguo, pia na kwa kupika. Ambapo tuko na shida ya corona Kenya, na tena tuko na shida ya tunaelekea kupata hapa hii eneo yetu shida ya kipindupindu kolera. Tunaelekea tena kupata shida ya malaria, maana umbu zimejaa.
Maji imenifamia, vitu zangu zimeenda. mahindi imeenda, mboga imeenda. Ilikuwa kama hata nimepanda sukuma imeenda. Hata viatu zote zilikuwa pale. Zingine zilienda lakini zingine nimeokoa.
Hundreds of Shibale and Likuyani residents are now worried that the situation could worsen. The raging waters have spread across the neighboring villages of Lukoya and Mayoni in the expansive Mumias region. The flat terrain coupled with poor drainage has greatly contributed to the impact of the disaster. Residents now call for humanitarian assistance.
Tungeomba serikali itusaidie kwa chakula, kitu ya kwanza, maana kama huna chakula hauwezi ukaishi. Kitu ya pili, afya yetu ni mbaya, maana mazingira yetu ni mbaya, machoo zimeboromoka. Sasa sanitation ni mbaya katika hali yetu. Tumesikia uzuri na watu wa Red Cross kwa sababu ndio wametukimbilia wa kwanza.
Nyeshi hapa kwetu Mumias inanyesha kwingine, na vile tumejionea maji inaendelea kuwa mingi kwa mto Nzoia, na pia tunahimiza watu wetu, vile tumeona hali huko kwa mto, tumeona kwamba watu wameweza kulima mpaka kwa mto mwenyewe, na tumeona hiyo ndio jambo moja ambayo imechangia hata maji kuvunja na kuingia kwa manyumba na hata kwa mashamba.
Mulindi Kerry, TV47 in the county of Kakamega.
Yes, one of the stories that is pretty much sad. We'll be asking Mheshimiwa how he's prepared himself, or they have prepared themselves towards ensuring that the people of Kisii, the people of South Mugirango, are well catered for, especially during this time of heavy rains. But that aside, we cross over to some bit of politics. And the withdrawal of Governor Mike Mbuvi's Sonko security detail has elicited mixed reactions, with many asking if the action was informed by Sonko's sore relationship with the national government. The Ministry of Interior has, however, denied that Sonko's 5 bodyguards had been withdrawn.
The withdrawal of Governor Mike Mbuvi's Sonko security details has elicited mixed reactions, with many asking if the action was informed by Sonko's sole relationship with the national government.
So it would only be decent and it would only be courteous for somebody to communicate that we are looking to transfer, or we are seeking this number of officers from the city inspectorate to the NMS. Can you guide us to identify the officers so that you do not affect critical services like the security of the governor?
This has come shortly after the back and forth between Sonko and the national government over the transfer of functions deed. In an interview with Governor Mike Sonko's personal assistant, Ben Mulwa, the county assembly sat and reviewed a quick decision that was not in tandem with the governor's decision.
As a shock that actually the assembly had chosen on their own volition to allocate monies to functions that are still under the Nairobi City County government and transferring them to the NMS. I'll give you examples. Like the city inspectorate is not part of what was transferred. Finance and economic planning is not a part of what was transferred. Agriculture and many other departments, ICT, are not anywhere near the functions that were transferred. So out of malice, because that is our standpoint, out of malice, the assembly chose to build or to generate their own budget, discuss their own budget, and submit, pass their own budget, and then submit it to the governor to assent.
According to Ben Mulwa, this, however, seemed to ignite a political gear, with some politicians inviting malice. The national government asked Nairobi County government for a 100 days ultimatum to window for the Special Multi-Agency Committee under the Nairobi Metropolitan Services to assess service delivery as agreed in the deed. In an effort to tighten the loopholes and stop the spread of coronavirus, the governor found himself in another twist. The sanitization booths he had erected in the CBD and Kibra were pulled under unclear circumstances. Sonko was not pleased by the action, and he went to express his displeasure on his Twitter accounts. On Tuesday, the High Court issued an order temporarily stopping the state from interfering with the Sonko's rescue team in its effort to distribute sanitizers in the city.
He needs to have food rotting in the stores here, yet there are starving families in Nairobi, and just somebody somewhere who sits in a government office, who earns a salary paid by the same Kenyans, does not want those people to receive the food. We find that to be extremely unfortunate. It is not only evil.
Earlier on, there were claims that Governor Sonko paid a visit to Deputy President William Ruto, and that might have been the genesis of his latest woes. Paul Kirobi, TV47.
Thank you, Paul. Now, the government says that it makes no business sense to roll out mass testing for the entire Kenyan population. Speaking to TV47 on phone earlier, the Acting Director General for Health in the Ministry of Health, Dr. Patrick Amoth, said that the government sees more sense in engaging in targeting testing owing to the fact that sample collection kits are not sufficient at the moment. The Kenya Medical Practitioner and Dentist Union Acting Secretary General, Dr. Chibanzi Mwachonda, on the other hand, says as much as the capacity to embark on mass testing is not adequate, this status of affairs may enhance the breeding of transmissions, and asymptomatic cases already have been cited to existence or in existence.
On Tuesday, Acting Director General for Medical Services in the Ministry of Health, Dr. Patrick Amoth, confirmed on phone that the government indeed does not have capacity to embark on large-scale testing of the population in terms of sample collection kits. Dr. Amoth stated that sample collection kits are not enough in the country, and this situation may persist as hurdles in the supply chain continue. Currently, the government is purchasing its testing kits from China, the United States, and Europe. Medics such as the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentist Union, Acting Secretary General Dr. Chibanzi Mwachonda, concede that the testing kits capacity is low, but this state of affairs may be a breeding ground for transmission of coronavirus, especially bearing in mind the fact that there have been reports of asymptomatic cases of people who are positive but showing no symptoms.
If in the community you have a big number of people who are exhibiting mild symptoms, just like your normal sore throat, your normal fever, just a slight fever, they'll easily transmit it. So the only way to reveal that is if you were able to conduct mass testing.
Acting Director General in the Ministry of Health, Dr. Patrick Amoth, says Kenya is not the only nation experiencing this issue of insufficient testing kits. In fact, the government recently received testing kits from China to help kickstart the mass testing operation, and still there is a deficit towards what could help test on large scale. This state of affairs is being seen by some medics as lagging the country behind the virus.
Currently, we are behind the disease because we are only doing contact tracing. So when we do mass testing of people, then we're going to be slightly ahead of the disease.
As positive cases continue to rise in Africa, the World Health Organization has warned that the continent is not getting accurate figures on the extent of the outbreak due to lack of capabilities to conduct mass testing, indicating that mass testing is vital. However, Kenyans are being urged to observe all preventative measures in place. Leangare for TV47.
Remember, the program is a Pledge Watch. Hashtag Pledge Watch is where you can drop those messages. And of course, we will get to sample some of your comments as we proceed with the show. You can as well, of course, tweet us on at Linda_Alela at TV47 or the SMS short code, which is 22047. Let's get to hear what questions you have for Mheshimiwa this evening. Remember, Sylvanus Osoru, that is the Member of Parliament, South Mugirango, of course, in Kisii County, will be joining us this evening. And we put him to task in regards to what it is that he has done for the people of South Mugirango. So keep it right here. We take a short break there and we'll be right back with much more.
Mount Kenya University takes pride in being an academic giant with some of the best infrastructure, imparting knowledge to the best brains in the country and the region. Our members of faculty are keen to deliver market-driven programs in science and humanities with a keen focus on linkages with relevant organizations. We admit both self-sponsored and government-sponsored students under the Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Service. Join us today and train with the best to become the best. Mount Kenya University, unlocking infinite possibilities.
My name is Sujata Kotam Raju. I am the National General Secretary of Hindu Council of Kenya. Namaskar to my dear sisters and brothers. Now this is the time everyone will have to take the responsibility to fight against this virus, not to spread further in this country. If at all, if you want to go out, maintain the social distance. Avoid going to the enclosed areas like supermarket, temples, churches, any religious functions. Avoid shaking your hands and hugs, any form of physical contact. You can just say namaste. For more information, dial 719 or *719 hash. Kamesha Corona.
For more inquiries, please email ads@tv47.co.ke or simply call us on 0748 205 604.
Ni jukwaa linalowapa vijana nafasi ya kuchangia kwa mada inayowaathiri.
Vijana tukishikana, we can bring a revolution. Tunaweza geuza serikali sasa, lakini serikali yenyewe haiwezi kubali.
Tunazungumza kuhusu ajira, afya, uongozi, ukuzaji wa talanta pamoja na masuala ibuka katika jamii. Ni mazungumzo bora inayofungua mlango wa suluhisho kwa masuala tata miongoni mwa vijana. Ungana nami Paul Kirobi kila siku ya Jumatano kuanzia saa 12 hadi saa 1 jioni katika kipindi cha Vijana Mashinani. Wakati wetu ni sasa.
Look at gesturing. It is on the same point of a farming. But in this case, on gesturing, this is where as a teacher, you are working.
The second reason why entrepreneurship is important is also that it helps you to plan for business finance. Business finance here simply means how much money do you need at the point of starting the business, and when is it needed, and is it for a short period of time or for a long period of time?
We still feel that the tourists are not getting value for their money. That experiential experience they are looking for is not there.
Well, so much feedback coming in, and of course we'll be taking a look at them before we get to wind up the show. And I can see Mheshimiwa is already on standby with us. Of course, we'll be engaging him in a bit. But then, of course, most importantly, we say, we take a look at the events of the day and what really has been taking a center stage. And Kenyan rapper Smalls Lethal claims that he was arrested on Monday for criticizing Kisii Governor James Ongwae in his new song, which is dubbed I Am Offended, registering his disappointment on how the leadership has failed to address issues for the people. He's among many who have artistically spoken against bad leadership. But just how genuine are politicians to stick to these promises? Finding that out is what Pledge Watch is all about. So Coming right next, of course, we'll be talking to him, and indeed, coming from the streets and now a politician, lawyer and businessman, Silvanus Osoru is our guest tonight. Has he fulfilled the pledges that he gave to the people of South Mugirango? Good evening, Mheshimiwa.
Good evening, how are you?
I am good. Thank you so much for finding time.
Asante sana.
Would you rate 10 over 10 in terms of what you've done to the people of South Mugirango?
Really, I can't set my own exam and rate myself.
Oh, really?
And yeah, it will be wrong because in any case, I'll give myself a 10 over 10.
Well, you would, but in the event that someone gives you a 1 over 10, what would you say? At least give me 5?
No. I wouldn't mind. I'll be like, okay, fine. Perhaps I've made some effort. My extension has been 1%, so I wouldn't really say anything. But I'm sure your team was on the ground. The right answer after the show.
Yes, just briefly before we delve deep into you. Millions of counties misappropriating these funds. Why? And what are you doing so that at least your people are able to get the money or the monies that have been channeled down there towards ensuring that, yes, development is felt?
I've been among the few members of parliament who are raising issues in regard to the how money is in our counties. And it will revenue from the businesses around the county, in the urban centers and stuff like that. Kisii County in particular receives about 9 billion per year.
Right.
We only have 9 constituencies. So I've actually been asking myself that if you've got 9 billion from the national government and then you've got now 9 constituencies, what do you really think 1 billion can do? If you allocate 1 billion per constituency, it will really do much than what we do in only 100 million that we ask. But unfortunately, you hardly see anything that is worth 10 shillings in the county. No, forget about 1 billion.
Has this information directly been taken to the authorities, to the right people who are supposed to investigate this?
Yeah, we have. We've really raised those issues. Unfortunately, again, we are gagged in law because our role as the National Assembly is happens in the national government.
Right.
But the other role of oversighting the county governments is left with the senators.
So you have no right to whistleblow as a Kenyan, because you're a Kenyan before you're a member of parliament.
Exactly. What you can only do is to raise issues, raise queries, and then of course we are told to pass through right channels, go through the Senate.
Okay.
But unfortunately, the governors have managed, to quell the pressure from the senators. And most of them are in their payrolls. My senator in particular is not able to ask the governor anything. Because
these are very heavy allegations, and your people are watching you, and they're expecting you to represent them as a member of parliament, legislation. And you're supposed to represent them, you're supposed to whistleblow in such occurrences. Say hi to baby right there. Don't you think then the people of South Mugirango should be worried?
Yeah, that is true. But unfortunately, me and them, the only advantage that I have, ahead of them is perhaps to kind of write a memorandum to the Senate.
Okay.
which is a bit accessible or quicker to get to the highest authorities in the Senate,
right,
and sit down and wait.
I hope you managed to do that, because
we've been able to do that. Right. I've been very particular, especially in my constituency, where the county promised a sugar factory. 2 years down the line, nothing.
Okay.
Yet land was allocated from the community back to the public. We have also been very particular on a place called Bonchari constituency, where a banana factory was promised in 2013. Money was drawn. To date, you haven't seen anything. But again, unfortunately, in this country, you are defined, your development is defined based on your political correctiveness.
Okay. And of course, that's what we get to learn about this evening. Indeed, the promises that you've also made to your people. Let's leave that aside and cross over to the COVID-19 pandemic right here in the country. In the wake of it, what are you doing to ensure that your residents, the residents of South Mugirango, are safe from the pandemic?
Number one, I'm praying for them, because
all right.
I want to say that this thing is not really, you can't cage this thing within the confines of the constituency. It's a global war, and much of the things that we do are kind of like just mitigation measures.
Right.
But more protective gears and everything are left with experts. And I'm sure the experts are working around the clock to make sure that we are safe as a country.
On the Senate proceedings, you've heard that no amounts of money have been channeled to counties. Several counties have not been able to receive this. What do you make of that statement from, of course, Senator Moses Wetangula?
That is very true. But again, you see, we equally need to give the government a bit of some appreciation on what some of the measures that they've taken. This is a pandemic that just came, from the moons. I mean, it wasn't expected.
But shouldn't we be ready in such occurrences? For instance, right now we're dealing with the landslide, the mudslides, of course, the rains. I mean, shouldn't we be ready as a country to deal with such pandemics in the event that they will come?
We should be ready.
Yeah.
But there is what we call in law force majeure.
Okay.
It's an act of God. The acts of God in law are very sensitive. Like, those are the things that are unforeseeable. Insurance makes you be ready for an accident.
Yeah.
There is what we call an act of God that you really can't, define. That is why it's caught even the superpowers in this world, unaware. That is why you see Trump confused. You see every country confused. Serious countries like China confused, and all through. So much of the measures that we are taking, in any case, we're really trying.
Okay.
We yet to do a lot, but we're really trying. Now, on my side,
right.
What I'm doing first is to pray for my people in Kisii and the constituencies and even the country. I'll meet you now. You need to go there. Okay. And the country. And that is number one. Number two, we are also working hard to make sure that we teach people on the basics of hygiene, which we've also been told, because we're really not experts. We're also hearing from the experts. Number three, we've also tried within our reach. Like myself, I will be distributing face masks this weekend. Okay. I gave about 500 containers in the constituency the other day, to sensitize people for hand washing and or hygiene, personal hygiene. I mean, really praying for them. That is the main thing. There is really nothing much you can do. All
right. Now that we are dealing with pandemics and disasters that come across, we have the rains with us this time. And if I'd go back to last year, about 195 households in Chicago, Borabu ward were displaced following landslide in your region. So what have you done since then, and of course right now, to ensure that residents are prepared to deal with the wet season at this particular time, especially those ones that are associated with landslides?
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. There are hotspots in my constituency that are notable with landslides, and they really displace people and flooding and everything.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we don't have a budget as members of parliament for such. What we do is we raise the issue with the Ministry of Interior and the county government, county disaster department. And we've done that already. Last time I did the same when my people faced a challenge with the landslide again at a place called Nyasasa. I engaged with the county government, I engaged with the Interior Ministry, and they tried to salvage the situation. Recently, again in my ward, that very particular place that you said is within my ward and my neighborhood, people again face that challenge. But unfortunately, unfortunately this time, the whole country was focused on this serious pandemic.
I keep asking this question, Mheshimiwa, that every other time, every member of parliament I will host will say that, we have tried to do that, we've reported on that. I mean, doesn't it break the hearts of your constituents to hear that, the people they elected on board are the very same people are saying that, we tried. I mean, what is the essence of then waking up in the morning, going out there and, voting this person if they've not been successful in addressing some of these issues that have been perennial for years?
Our people also, and I really need the media to start educating our people on the roles of each particular department. Each particular arm of government. Our roles are well defined in law.
Yes, they are.
Article 95 of the Constitution gives me two main roles, that is oversight and representation.
Yes.
Now, I oversight the national government on the expenditure. I represent my people. Part of the things of reporting and making calls and everything and doing letters is representation. Now that people across the constituency can't do letters by themselves, you can imagine 100,000 registered voters in South Mugirango writing letters to the ministry. I represent them. I write a letter to them. That is my role.
How does it feel writing this letter and pushing, yet you're not able to get answers, yet nothing is done? How does it feel?
It feels very bad. It's very frustrating than even to the common man. It's more frustrating to me than the common man.
Okay.
And because of the centralized way of operations that we passed in 2010 Constitution, it's not very easy. It's not. I actually thought when I became a member of parliament that a member of parliament will be giving orders and they'll just be followed. That if today I decide, okay, this is the direction, I need this road made, and people will decide, they'll make it tomorrow. But it's a long chain of bureaucracy that you've got to follow, and it's the law. There's nothing we can do. Our people need to understand.
Are you also politely telling us that indeed there are some great loopholes in the Constitution, then hence the need for us to make some amendments?
There are no loopholes. It is simply civic education to the common man.
Okay.
My role is oversight and representation. So the question the Mwananchi should be asking me when there are issues to do with the roads, there are issues to do with some things which are not directly within my budget, is to ask me for proof of pushing,
all right,
to relevant authorities, because that is representation.
All right, Mheshimiwa, hold it.
Once I've shown them proof, then we are good to go.
All right, let's pick this phone call from Peter Atema, all the way from your constituency, I believe. Good evening, Peter.
Yes, good evening to you.
Thank you so much for calling in. Wacha tusikie maoni yako kwa siku ya leo au swali lako kwa mheshimiwa.
Swali mimi ninauliza mheshimiwa ni kwamba
ndio.
Mheshimiwa kwanza namsamia habari ya jioni.
Habari ya jioni.
Mheshimiwa Osoru. Kwa majina mimi naitwa Peter Atema kutoka South Mugirango, Nyangweta DOK.
Ndio.
Mheshimiwa alituahidi ya kwamba kuna factory ya miwa angetuletea huko Nyangweta Forest. Mpaka wa sasa hajaona hiyo forest.
Factory ya nini?
Factory ya miwa.
Ya miwa, okay. Ndio.
Swali la pili. Ukiangalia sehemu nyingi kila boma iko na stima.
Ndio.
Lakini ukiangalia hapa South Mugirango, stima iko chache sana kwa miji chache kidogo. Lakini kama hapa Nyangweta DOK South Mugirango ni watu wake ambayo walimpigia kula, lakini boma nyingi hazina stima. Ikiwa iko karibu haifanyi. Yeye kama mheshimiwa na tunajua kila kitu anaweza.
Ndio.
Amefanya nini kuhusiana na watu wake ili wapate mwangaza, watoto wasome, ili akikuta wacha mambo ya ujumbe apate watu wa kuridi. Asante.
All right. Thank you so much. Asante sana, Peter. Mheshimiwa, you've heard what Peter has asked, in regards to factory that you had promised them. Sugarcane, of course, which is one of the key economic drivers down there, or one of the cash crops, and, in South Mugirango, and the aspect of power. I mean, what would you say to him this evening?
I'll answer him. If you noticed when we started this communication or this conversation,
right,
I raised the issue with the county government's promises. The sugar factory that was to be set in South Mugirango and Nyangweta is a county government project. It is not a member of parliament project or national government project.
But he says that you're the one who promised them during the campaigns that
I think he's just misplaced.
All right.
And unless I am mad.
Okay.
Something like that. Because even recently, very recent, we visited the place with the county governor.
Right.
That is in 2018, thereabouts, for public participation.
Right.
I came there as a member of parliament to give the governor moral support, in kind of appreciation for a good initiative that he had done for the people of South Mugirango. But unfortunately, that thing has turned to be a white elephant. In fact, as we are speaking, I'm not in good terms with the governor because of that sugar factory.
Okay.
I tend to think that my people are conned of their land, and I fight for justice for that. Number two, he raised the issue with the electricity.
Right.
As I said earlier, my role is to represent them. Indeed, it's very true that at this time and age, our people still are in the dark. Some people, not really all the places, but we've also tried to balance power allocation across the constituency. We've worked with the different departments, like the last mile connectivity officers. Like now we are doing connectivity at a place called Nyamondo. He comes from Nyangweta. Nyangweta, there is power, sufficient power, and I'll challenge him to make an application with the Kenya Power and pay a minimum amount of money, because the generators, the transformers are very close to his home, because we've got very good generators at Nyangweta DOK Primary School and other places within that area. You make an application and you get power within your homes at very pocket-friendly fee. We are also connecting other places. We've connected a place called Bukima in Tabaka Ward. We've connected Nyamondo area. We are connecting the Socho. We've connected some place called Marongo up there. We've connected, we are connecting now Kenyoro. We are connecting somewhere called Getondo. We are trying.
Okay, Mheshimiwa, for lack of a better word, let me start by saying this. Now that you are distancing yourself from so much, of course, of all these responsibilities that are put on you back, let's talk about matters education, which I know falls in your docket hugely. Exactly. And some bit of some roads. Now we are coming to you, right? And the state of schools in constituencies, in this particular constituency, some have argued are poor, like they're in, the infrastructures have issues. There's a message that we received after we posted the poster, and one person argued that that there are jiggers in these particular areas. Of course, then the aspect of electricity, which is key right now, matters education. What would be your explanation to the people? Matters maybe you've done so much also in regards to ensuring that there's a boost on matters education.
My explanation to my people is very simple. We are really working around the clock to make sure that we, place our constituency competitive among the rest. And they need to live by the fact that resources that we receive per year is only 100 million.
Right.
The only amount that we receive, and that is an equitable amount across the country, regardless of the number of schools that we have. It will interest you to know that my constituency has got about 158 schools, and I receive 100 million. Out of the 100 million, there's a percentage for recurrent expenditure, which is about 5%.
Okay.
There's a percentage for sports, and there is a percentage for bursary allocation. So the actual amount that is left with me for developing schools is about 40 to 45 million, or at most 50 million, with a number of my schools being 158. With that kind of a number, you'll really, your guess is as good as mine on how I struggle to allocate the amounts, equitably to make sure that
there is a deficit towards what will help.
But again, when you go to my neighboring constituency, a constituency called Bomachoge Church, the constituency has got only 51 schools with the same amount that I get, similar amount as mine, but with 51 schools. So you can now see the difference. Now, be it as it may, with the small amount that we are left with for development, we've really tried to balance across the 6 wards. And I can mention ward per ward, school per school, that we've really made sure that they are working. If you go to a ward called Tabaka Ward, for example, we've got 6 wards in the constituency. I have made schools called, like there's one called Egetonto that was mad walled all through from class 1 to class 8. I'm sure your people got those pictures. I am working on, permanent structures. I've worked on a school called Keburunga. I've worked on a school called Kiorori. I've worked on a school called Nyagitenche. Ikoba Primary School. I've worked on a school called Amaiko. I've worked on a school called Tabaka Township.
All right.
Okay. That is Tabaka. It's still on Tabaka Ward.
Yeah.
Ramoya Girls.
Okay.
I have worked there.
All right.
When you come to... No, let me finish.
Yes, finish, Mheshimiwa. Finish, Mheshimiwa.
Yes, and there's also I've also worked on a school called Nyamwe. We are still on Tabaka Ward, and we are still working on other schools like Ogecha within Tabaka Ward and others.
All right.
When you come to a ward called Bogetenga, I have worked in so many schools, Nduru Primary, Nduru Girls. I've worked on Nduru Boys High School. I've worked on Bumunyama. I've worked on Kiorina. I've worked on Nsoko. I've worked on Esaka. That is. We are talking about and Gotchaki and Rio City.
All right.
That is Bogetenga Ward.
Well,
when you go to a
okay.
I want to
exhaust them, Mheshimiwa. Yeah, as you consider time.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay, let me be very fast.
Okay.
Okay. When you go to Bogetenga Ward, I've done Nyakorere, Manywanda. I've done Ichuni, Kabonyo, Gesonso, Giasobera, Kabonyo, Manywanda A, Manywanda B. You know, I've done Marongo. And I'm also doing a TVET, Technical Vocation Training College or Institute at Marongo, the other part of the constituency. Then now we go to the other part of the constituency. There's a ward called Chitango Borabu, the biggest ward in Kisii County that has got close to 50 schools. I have done about 30 of them, starting from Nyamondo, going to Mesocho, going to Ikova, going to Keburanchogu, going to Etago, you go to Nyangweta SDA, then you go on the other side of Nyasasa, you go to... Yes. I am.
Okay.
In Moticho Ward, I have worked at Kora, I've worked at Moticho Girls, I've worked on Donyo, I've worked on...
okay.
Exactly. So many other schools. Worked on, even in Moticho AP camp, I've built, I've worked on...
Hold it right there, Mheshimiwa, lest I come out of this place speaking.
Finally, let me finish this Getenga.
Okay.
I've worked on schools like Bosaga, I've worked on Muma, you know, I've worked on Kenuch,
all right.
I've worked on Mo, I've worked on all those schools, and there's one that
Working on would be amazing. They would be in the best of state, Mheshimiwa. I'm almost speaking Kikisi, because then you Abakisi, Ababo, all these schools, but all the same, yeah. That would be one point, and one would ask, what does working on mean exactly? But before we delve that deep into that, I mean, what then is the essence of us having all these beautiful schools when students are not able to access education? Number one, there is one Victor Omori who's asking, or who is saying, I mean, the question of bursaries is an issue because not all students have been able to get bursaries. A majority of them are sent back at home, you know, because then they are not able to pay for school fees. You coming from, you know, a very humble background, having had your fair share of, you know, tough times when you were growing up. I mean, what would you say in terms of ensuring that all these students, at least every other child, gets an opportunity to get an education?
Thank you very much. To answer the first question you asked, what does it mean when I say about
you have worked on them? Yes.
Working on means either facelifting them or building new classrooms and doing away with the old structures that could motivate students in school. I mentioned a school called Getonto, which was bad walled, that I'm pulling down to build permanent structures from class 1 all through. And schools like Keburunga, which had very funny structures that it was actually a disaster in waiting, that I pulled down and built new classrooms for the people. And with a standard structure and and standard color with iron sheets that, you know, coated with blue iron sheets. On the issue of the bursaries, as I said earlier, we have a certain percentage that we give for bursaries. And like for the last financial year, our bursary stood at about 25 million shillings. Initially, there was a bit of some confusion on high school bursaries and university bursaries. And we realized that most of our schools within the constituencies are day schools, which are free. And the only thing you need to pay is lunch. So we decided that we will not be giving high school bursaries because of the need of the universities and tertiary institutions, which we really wanted to give a substantial amount of money.
Right.
But when you have about 20 million, like I've mentioned, for example, or 25 million for that matter, we get about 6,000 applicants. So we've really got to cut down to more deserving cases to about 2 million, so that each person gets 10 million or at least 5 million. Worst case scenario, we reduce the amount to give each person, or at least a good percentage, like 4,000 people. So we've really tried to do that, and we've been giving bursaries. The challenge with this line of thought is that where you don't give, okay, if today somebody gets a bursary, they appreciate. If tomorrow they happen not to get, they say that, now bursaries are to party, atujizi nainanga wapi, but you see now, there is no way you can handle that. This money goes directly to the schools, and I'll tell my people, if you don't benefit today, somebody else has benefited, you need to appreciate.
All right.
Exactly.
George Onyego is still not convinced. You've mentioned all these schools, but he's still asking what exactly, because maybe some of these schools that you've mentioned are not in the best of shape. That is George Onyego who's sending this message.
I don't know what it means. That is a very generous message.
What exactly?
You really need not to generalize your question. Bring in its
particular
and say that a school like this that you've mentioned is not in very good shape. But I'll tell you this.
All right.
We're talking about 2-year record, yeah? So he shouldn't be expecting a miracle that in 2 years I have to pull down, Kimbini, and build a new structure. We've done 2 classrooms or 3 or 1. It is a process to balance others. I started by saying I have got 158 schools. So if I'm building 3 classes, I have done. You wait for the other financial year, we do others, because there are other schools that we have to balance across the constituency.
All right, Mheshimiwa. Kevin was calling, but we lost him. But all the same, I hope he calls back again. Now, let's cross over to the roads, which I know also is not squarely on your docket. But all the same, there are roads that are probably channeled towards, your office, towards ensuring that they are catered for. And some of the questions that we received, the state of roads, Kamagambo, Nyansibi, Etago Road have been carpeted. However, the road from this one, someone acknowledges. I don't know whether that was your work. That is Kamagambo, Nyansibi, na Etago. And then coming to different ones, that is Nduru, the road from Nduru Secondary to Nyakorere Road, where you hail from, they say is in bad shape. Are there plans of this road and others that are in bad state to be worked on? But before you answer that, let's pick this phone call from Victor. Victor? Good evening.
Good evening.
Asante sana kwa kupiga. Any question for Mheshimiwa this evening?
Yes, niko na swali.
Ndio.
Naam, niko hewani kweli?
Uko hewani kabisa? Naam. Nakusikia, wewe zungumza.
Niko na swali.
Ndio.
Swali langu ni kuhusu, mimi naitwa Victor, ni kutoka West Mugirango, lakini unajua Mugirango ni Mugirango tu, hata kama ni West ama ni South.
Ndio.
Safi. Basi swali langu la kwanza ni kuhusu kilimo.
Ndio.
Na unapata kwamba kule maeneo ya Kisii kuna ili zao la kahawa.
Ndio.
Wakulima wengi wameweza kung'oa kahawa zao kwa sababu ya mapato duni, viwanda vimeweza kusambaratika. Najua mheshimiwa atasema kwamba pengine viwanda hivyo vinasimamiwa na serikali ya kaunti, lakini kama mheshimiwa unajua kilimo ni kilimo. Swala hilo wanalishughulikia vipi? Alafu swali la pili ni kuhusu barabara. Najua kwamba atasema kwamba barabara kuna zile za serikali kuu, kuna zile barabara za county, kuna zile barabara za pengine za MCA na mambo kama hayo. Lakini kuna zile barabara za ndani kwa ndani. Lakini kwa mfano barabara ya kutoka Kenya ikienda Nyakoiba najua hapo ni mpaka wa Bomachoge na South Mugirango. Huko watu wanalalamika kwamba washughulikie kwa sababu ni mpaka. Unapata kwamba watu wengi wanaopiga kura wanaishi South Mugirango, kwa hiyo mpaka, lakini wanapiga kura upande wa Machoka. Kwa hivyo mheshimiwa anawahepa.
Ndio.
Kwa hivyo sijui kwamba anaweza zungumzaje swala hilo. Alafu la tatu ni education.
Ndio.
Education unapata kwamba shule ziko na mabasi mazuri sana, lakini mijengo hamna. Sijui mheshimiwa atazungumzaje kuhusu swala hilo.
Alright. Asante sana Victor, anasema anaitwa Victor kutoka West Mugirango. Mheshimiwa umemsikia, na labda kwa sababu ya muda itakuwa ni bora kama tutafanya hala kumjibu maswali yake, na pia ile ambayo nilikuwa nimeuliza hapo awali kuhusiana bado na mipango ya barabara.
Wacha kwanza nimjibu kwamba unajua West Mugirango iko Nyamira County.
Ndio.
Haiko Kisii County.
Ndio.
wote ni Mugirango, lakini tuko Nyamira County. Na pia yeye amefanya generalization, especially akisema maneno ya mashule, barabara, kuna shule ziko na basi lakini hazina mijengo. Sehemu ya South Mugirango tumejaribu kuhakikisha kwamba tumejaribu kubalance, ndio pengine watu wapate mijengo ambazo zinaonekana vizuri. Lakini kwa hilo swali ambalo ameuliza la maneno ya kilimo ya hawa aswa,
pia utazungumzia mahindi.
Ni mwambie kwamba na mahindi.
Ndio.
Ni ukweli kwamba mambo ya kilimo wakati huu yanashughulikiwa na serikali za county.
Ndio.
Na sisi kama serikali kuu kutoka national government hatuhusiki na maneno ya kilimo. Lakini ningependa kumjibu kwa sababu mimi sasa nimebahatika kuwa naketi kwenye kule bunge kamati ya kilimo ambayo inahusika na maneno ya kufuatilia kazi ya kilimo kidogo tu, ya kwamba kuna maneno tunajaribu kutengeneza. Tumekuja na coffee bill mzuri kabisa ya kuhakikisha kwamba tuna salvage wakulima wa kahawa, na sitataka niseme hayo sana kwa sababu kidogo iko jikoni na pikwa. Itakapotoka atapata jibu la maana.
Sawa. Haya
na hilo swali lingine aliuliza juu ya barabara, kwa sababu aliuliza swali ya barabara, and I think it's very important. Let me switch to
English. Yes, briefly, Mheshimiwa, as we get to wind up, because then time also is not on our side. Yes, we're talking about the roads. Yes. Let
me switch to the roads and say this. Number one, somebody asked about the roads, the road that leads to my home.
Yes.
And, that is true. That road, Nduru to Nyakorere to the other places, leads to my home. If the gentleman will be more honest, he can tell you that road, since I got elected, has been done close to 5 times.
Right.
It's very unfortunate that it's raining heavily now in Kisii. And when it rains, it's only farms that you can do. You can't do roads.
Okay.
Let our people be a little bit patient until the rains dry up again. Then of course we can be able to redo, especially that particular road, because that falls entirely under my docket. And I mean, it's very important. It's common sense that within the road that leads to my home should be neat, because in any case people come from all over to see me.
Right.
So it will be done. Yeah. On the other parts, like the guy who mentioned about Nyansembe, Kenyanya, Nyansembe, Kamagambo and Nyansembe, because I heard you say that. Before I became a member of parliament, we only had one tarmac from Kamagambo to Nyansembe.
All right.
As we're speaking right now, we've extended a tarmac to where Victor even talked about.
Yes.
We've extended a tarmac from Nyansembe to Etago to Kenyanya. In fact, my constituency in that stretch does not have a rough road currently, in that particular stretch.
All right.
The stretch that hasn't been worked on is in the other constituency, and they should now ask their member of parliament. Okay. We've also done another tarmac from Nyachenge to Tabaka to Iko.
Yeah.
It's being done. The tarmac is already at Tabaka. It's going the other part. Today on paper, there was an addendum extending an advertisement of a road that we are doing from a place called Ikoba downwards to Nyabigena, then to another place called Rio City. Then from Nyabigena, we are also advertising another one by God's grace.
Right.
We do from Nyabigena going downwards to Nyakorere, where I come from now, all the way to that place called Nduru. I mean, it's just a little bit of patience, because we've done much in that angle. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much, Mheshimiwa. We should have gotten 1 more hour, because I had lots and lots of questions set for you. But all the same, at least we say thank you so much.
It's very important for me to mention a few of things.
Yes, briefly,
let me say,
30 seconds or so.
Yes. Let me say that we've only been in office for 2 years.
Yes.
And it's very important for our people to realize that it will, out of continuity, we'll be able to, of course, progress and do other works within the next 2.5 years that is left with us. But again, for continuity purposes, for us to complete further, we'll need them to extend us another term so that
you will pay me for giving you the platform of pulling a campaign right here on national television. But all the same, thank you so much, Mheshimiwa. We'll get to answer more of these questions on our digital platform. So don't go anywhere, Mheshimiwa, because then it's important that you speak to your people. Otherwise, thank you so much for the great feedback, and most importantly for keeping us company right from the word go up until now. Sadly, because of time, I won't be able to go through more of your comments, But we say asante sana. We get to see you again next week, same time, same place. It was great having you. My name is Linda Alela. Do enjoy the rest of your viewing. Remember, again, on our digital platform, you can get to engage Mheshimiwa and ask all these questions because he'll certainly get to answer them. Have a good night. Thank you, Mheshimiwa.